Thank you all for sticking around for our County for Kids meeting. Some of you literally signed up for that, some of you just get to be here because you're here, so lucky you. Let's see, we lost Jake. And Jake comes back. Hopefully he will pop up on the screen a QR code for us. Some of you that registered just for County for Kids, you checked in when you walked in the door. Others of you who've been here at Fall Forum, we would like to keep you up to date on County for Kids as well. So if you, and Jay popped up that QR code, when he pops that up on the screen, if you would just scan that and give us your contact information. And then maybe at the end, if you're hesitant at first, by the end, you're gonna want to. So maybe he'll pop it back up there again and you can do it at that time.
Hey everyone, thanks for being here. I'm Steve Petty. I'm the president and CEO of the Lynn Institute here in Oklahoma City. It's so good to see so many familiar faces and people that I hope I get to meet. I'm so glad that Joe let us come and do this with this group. So we figured we had a captured audience for most of you. So we really wanted to get your input and just letting Joe, I appreciate you so much. He's a problem child, but we all love him. Right? Anyway, for those of you who don't know, County for Kids started many years ago. It was over 10 years ago with my predecessor, the CEO of Lynn Institute, Karen Waddell, and her friend Mary Myrick, who's with Public Strategies. You guys may know all of that. But anyway, the whole purpose was for getting people together, not being in silos and not talking. Those people that were working in foster care and children's services. So after 10 years of meeting, collaborating, working together, networking, and having a lot of lunches and meetings, things were going very well. People were talking, projects were happening, and it felt like all was right with the world. So on our 10th anniversary, which was almost 2 years ago, we thought, okay, it's time to sunset this. We've done what we wanted to do, and some of the people changed, partners changed, and stuff like that. But when we had that meeting at North Care about 2 years ago, there was a lot of new people that said, wait a minute, we haven't been a part of this. We really want people to continue to talk, and we want to be have those networking opportunities. So again, almost 2 years ago, we said, okay, if Lynn still needs to do this, we'll at least kind of help move it along. Well, we got busy, kind of set it aside a little bit. I hate to say, but anyway, Brandy, she kept saying, I think we should do this. And I said, well, let's get them back together and see what they want to do. So thank you, Brandy, and all of the folks on the advisory team, like AJ and Sarah and Jennifer. Everybody was saying, let's at least talk to you folks and kind of see. And that's what you're here for today. So anyway, thank you for being here. Thank you, your input, and Councilman Mr. Thank you for being here too. We appreciate you very much. So if you don't know Councilman Kamal Pennington, you guys get to know him. See, I just put you on the spot there, sir. Anyway, I want to introduce Jennifer Abney. She's the founder and executive directors of Angels Foster Care Family Network, OKC. So Jennifer is the founder. She's a passionate advocate for children and families, and Jennifer has dedicated her career to transforming foster care experiences and building innovative systems to support those impacted by trauma. In addition to her work with Angels, Jennifer is one of the co-founders of the HALO Project and a founding member of Count In for Kids. Thank you, Jennifer, for being one of those founders. And she currently serves as the president of OK Care. Her leadership has been recognized with numerous honors, including the Visionary Award and the One Award from the Oklahoma Center for Nonprofits. Jennifer's influence extends beyond organizational leadership, and she has championed legislation, worked to modernize state child and welfare policies, and mentored many emerging nonprofit leaders. She sits on the governance committee for the city's admin systems of care, and her work has been pivotal in trauma-informed model care that significantly improves outcomes for children entering the foster system. She holds a bachelor's of science in human sciences with a focus on family studies and substance abuse from the Texas Tech University. Everyone, Jennifer Abney.
Come on. Anyway, for those of you who know me, know that I'm very passionate about collaboration. I'm passionate about
hearing everyone's voice in the room. And so I want you to ask questions if you have any, but throughout this session, I want you all to be thinking of ways that we can cut out the fat, cut out the, I don't like to have a meeting just to have a meeting. That's not my style. So as I kind of tell you about Count Me In for Kids, I want you to think about ways that we can maybe rejuvenate it and bring it back to focus on other issues. My passion is definitely foster care, but foster care hits probably every single one of your programs in some way, shape, or form. So we all do work together. And there are so many faces in this room that were on Count Me In for Kids with me from the original time we started it. We started Count Me In for Kids in 2012. Like Steve said, Karen Waddell and Mary Myrick. Karen was the CEO of Lynn Institute, and Mary Myrick is the CEO of Public Strategies. They got together because they both served on different committees that served the state. And they thought, how can we get more voices in the room, figure out maybe one or two things that are super, super important this year to everyone? And how can we make a movement to push it through and create change? All of us are in this room. We all have so many agendas, for our organizations. But when you come here and you hear all these things, a lot of us just go back to our office and then we sit in our silo. And so Karen Waddell and Mary Myrick wanted us to work together to create change and make things happen. And that works with the legislators, that works with the judges. It's a whole system of people. It's not just individual agencies. So it was started when just a community of state leaders wanted to know how they could help kids in Oklahoma. So that's an awesome thing to have state leaders want to help and want to hear what we have to say. They all have an open door policy. OICA, Joe does an incredible job at voicing our concerns and our needs and fighting for us at the Capitol, but we want to make sure he has the list of really our most important needs, not just a lot of, you see a line of people complaining and it's really, really long. And then you see a line for people who volunteer to make a difference. And there's like 2 people. So I don't know if you guys have seen that on something I just saw recently, but I was like, wow, that's the truth. Where Count Me In for Kids, instead of having a board that was 100 people, like some previous committees tried to do, we might have 100 members, but with a smaller board. And then we push through the important needs and make it happen. Well, that's where I feel like we could really partner with Joe and OICA and make things happen on, not picking a political side, but pushing it through the agenda for doing it for the kids. The vision of Safe Families was every central Oklahoma child or youth residing in or at risk out of home care has family who loves them and nurtures them as a safe place to call home and resource dedicated to productive launch into adulthood. That's kind of what their vision was. And the mission for Count Me In for Kids is to engage all central Oklahoma in meeting the needs of the state's most at-risk children, youth, and young adults through sustainable forums to link this population with those that provide direct services, any individual or entity that wants to help, city and community partners, for-profit or nonprofit, and the government. And so I could see in our future doing things like having a judicial summit with our voices behind some of the trainings for the judges to let them know what we all do. Just sitting in here sometimes and listening to a speaker or somebody who's very passionate about an issue and knowing my agency's been doing that for years. Why don't they know about that? Well, I feel like in Count Me In for Kids Collaborative, we're all talking. And one of my very favorite things that we did as a committee was to look at a way that we can help kids not enter foster care by utilizing community resources. And we found an amazing kind of a movement in Chicago, and it was Safe Family. And so our committees went up there to actually visit Safe Family and see what they were doing in Chicago, and we wanted to bring it here. So in order to do that, we had to create a new power of attorney law. We had to change it. So we worked directly with State Representative Jason Nelson, and we created a House bill to push through that allowed for partial power of attorney. Sounds so small, but what it did is it allowed the Safe Family to have power of attorney over education for this child and also health. So they could take the child to the doctor. They could do all these things for this family. While this family was trying to heal, and do all the things that our next speaker will talk to you about. But it's amazing how we pushed it through by itself. It didn't have anything tacked onto it, and it passed the House and the Senate 100%. And so that's a beautiful thing when everyone wants to come together and do something right. So that brings me to talk and introduce our next speaker who, does anybody have any questions really quickly about Safe Family, about County and Kids Collaborative? Okay. One thing I do want to mention though about County and for Kids is we did have different committees. And so I was the program committee that worked with providers. And so that was really interesting to me to see how all the providers came together, talked about their services. So we didn't like overlap in things that we did. We could collaborate together, utilize each other. That also helps on funding. It's good to know when you're writing grants for your agency, things like that. Anyway, so that's going to bring me into my next amazing guest speaker, who is Jessica Wazak. And I'm going to read her bio because it's so long, but I'm going to read it. I don't want to get it wrong. But she brings extensive experience working with children and families across multiple sectors, spanning from working with children and adolescents who have disabilities, children in the foster care system, youth that is involved in the justice system, parents and caregivers working to become stronger parents and families, and they're experiencing crisis. In each of these arenas, she's been an advocate for helping connect people to vital resources that promote child safety and family strengthening. Since joining Safe Families in 2017, Jessica has played a vital role in growing the organization, expanding in the impact statewide, and under her leadership, Safe Families has broadened its reach, offering families in need a robust circle of support and a reliable safety net to stabilize vulnerable families. That's a mouthful, but to say all that, our agency partnered with Jessica and with Safe Families as a founding member of County and for Kids in creating this program. And so our agency was able to help them do a lot of things to get started. So that's the beautiful part about County and for Kids is we can collaborate together. So that being said, here's Jessica.
I'm not gonna stand behind this thing because I don't know, you can't see me probably. So I'm Jessica Wazak. I, like Jennifer said, actually moved back home to Oklahoma in 2017 because basically I heard this mission, this story of Safe Families trying to get going and to get started. And they had a few different leaders that had come in and really needed somebody who understood both child welfare as well as churches and volunteer leadership, because Safe Families is not a program that's largely run by an agency. It's largely led through volunteers across the state and across a community. And so we need to be able to equip lots of people, right? So the beautiful thing about Safe Families is that when you guys bring in families and connect with many of your organizations, where you have families that you're serving for a period of time to get them a service, to get them to a different place, we then connect them with volunteers in this circle of support to help them get back on their feet and have potentially a long-term connection. So it's really addressing the issue of social isolation, which is incredible. But I am going to share a video, which is one of the families that we were able to serve recently, and then I'll share more about kind of how we got here, why, but I want you guys to get and see what it looks like and just the power of people coming together. So wait. Thank you for pulling it up. Looks like it's showing on the screen.
We got stable housing, a month after.
While he's pulling that up, I'll just share a little bit about what safe game. Oh, no.
Okay, no, and learn how many housing this be.
Strong enough to want to even serve another family. So I think listening to that, knowing that you can provide everything you need in due time, and like he did, you know, opening our doors. Yeah. One thing I wanted for my family, but I wanted my girls to like help out.
You're staying on the plan and,
Awesome. Hopefully you guys could hear that. I know it was a little quiet. But the thing I love about this video is this basically was a list and just looking for how to get into a safe and stable place to live. And so safe families is able to step in and provide a safe place for the children to be while these parents address those barriers. They have some other things that they wanted to grow on as well. And so we were able to connect them with other service providers and other community members to help strengthen their whole family. And then what ultimately happens through just volunteers stepping in to meet these needs is they end up building a relationship. And so both families in the video, these aren't actors we paid, like we didn't have a script that they read. Everything that they shared was just their experience of being connected to people who they wouldn't have otherwise been able to connect with. And so that has been the incredible power of having volunteer leadership coming around and strengthening families. And what I'll say is, when we got started, I think the idea of Count Me In for Kids was, how do we get people in the room, like Jennifer was talking about, to think about what are the issues that we see in our community and how, like, what do we do about it? And then the idea that was proposed, I think, Ed like was the director of DHS at the time and had mentioned that he'd seen this organization, Safe Families for Children in Chicago, and that's when County for Kids went, let's go see, because who's doing something to truly prevent kids from entering foster care, reduce the number of kids who go into foster care, and that was the issue at the time, because we had the highest number of kids per capita in care. And so we needed to address that issue and figure out, what do you do? Right? How do we actually prevent kids from going into the system, if at all possible? And what we know is about 80% of kids who enter foster care is due to neglect. It's due to a lack of resources, a lack of safe and healthy relationships, a lack of connection, all of those factors. And all of those factors are things that we can actually do something about, right? Like, we all are humans that could have a relationship with another human. And so lots of people did that. Jennifer and her family were one. They stepped in and said, we'll open our home and we will host a child in our home. And because of that, they were able to build a relationship with the parent. She was able to get back on her feet. And she was a mom, and I am gonna probably mess up the details, but she was in a diversion program. At Reemerge, hello. And she needed to be able to take some classes so she could get a job. And so she took classes on Saturday. How many of you guys know childcare centers are not typically open on Saturdays? Right? It's a challenge for parents who are particularly small parents and they don't have another option.
Just wanted to be in the meetings.
So there's lots of families, lots of people, community, who have dogs and also don't have family. They don't have grandma, aunt, uncle, cousins, they can call. And so if something hard happens, they look around and go, I have no one. And that's where Safe Family steps in. And so Jennifer and her family did that. Several others. We've actually hosted since the beginning 560 children to help families get back on their feet, become better, safer, healthier, just like this family, get into housing, address some other barriers, address mental health challenges. We've had lots of mamas who have had sweet babies and not had a single family member that they can call. And so if you're a lady in this room and you've ever had a kid, imagine going to the hospital by yourself and having to bring your 2-year-old with you, right? We have volunteers who love coming alongside these moms, and they'll actually, like, somebody is watching the kids, and we have coaches who also come around and say, like, hey, I'll go with you. And so we've had some coaches who are just people, actually one of them that is a kindergarten teacher, but had a passion to become a birthing coach. And so she got her start in serving in Safe Families of just walking alongside with the mama who needed to have a baby. And then we had another family that needed the same thing. And so she went and drove across town and picked this mom up at 2 a.m., put her water broke, and took her to the hospital. And then there was a host family that kept the kiddos safe while mom was in the hospital and had time to recover and get home. And so we've served 13,368 safe days with 376 volunteers currently. So some like Jennifer and other families, there's another video on our page from the Hendersons, and we've had many volunteers who have come, established a relationship, and so they may not be actively serving or hosting with Safe Families today, but they continue 7, 8, 9, 10 years later to have a relationship with the family that they came alongside and started. It's really the beauty that has happened through the collective impact of people like you in this room coming together and saying, we have some issues here in Oklahoma, right? And we have some challenges in our community. And so what could we do collectively if we work together, if we serve together, if we truly look at not just what our scope of the world is, right? Like we all have like frame of reference. And sometimes there's other things happening. There's bigger issues or other organizations that are doing things that if we collaborated, if we work together, we can actually see families strengthen. We can actually see communities rebuilt. And I think that's the story and the hope of County for Kids and also of Safe Families. And so I think that's the invitation today is to learn again, how do we do that? Like, what is the issue today that we need to address? Because we addressed the issue of the number of kids who were in foster care at that time was like 12,000 kids. It was literally the highest number of kids per capita. We've reduced that, and it's not just been, I mean, it's been a collective effort, right? The state was in the room. In those county for kids, there was leadership from the state, there was leadership from community agencies. And everyone, judges, everyone came together and said, like, we actually have to create not just one person who's passionate about it or one organization doing the work. Like, we have to create a network of organizations doing the work together so that when, say, family steps in and takes care of the kids, there's other people who are helping with mental health, who are helping with housing, who are helping with family, with transportation, with all of the issues, right? And so there's a lot of issues we still experience in our community, but I think that's the invitations. What would it look like if we try to collectively tackle another issue, not just from our own perspective and what would benefit me and my organization, but truly what would benefit our community and what can I bring to the table to make that happen. So thank you guys for your support of Safe Families. I know many of you, the organizations that we've had the honor of walking alongside. And I'll end by saying it was really sweet because I got married this year and we were sitting around the dinner table with teenagers. I'm still with teenagers, by the way. You guys want to pray for me or, they're all very sweet, but they're teenagers. But we were sitting around the dinner table the other day and it was funny because one of the teenagers looked at her dad and said, "Dad, isn't it funny that like Jess's job is really just trying to get rid of your job?" Well, my husband works in the child welfare space. And so we all laugh because we think it's really great. It's this beautiful thing because it isn't about competition. It's literally about how do we serve families well. And so we got to kind of share with the kids like, yes, and it takes all of us coming together and getting to share this to give some opportunities that we have. So thank you guys for being here. Thanks for listening and supporting Safe Families. It's been an incredible journey. We've got a lot of work still to do. And we did start in Oklahoma City primarily. We've created 12 kind of hubs of service around the state to serve more families in our state to be able to have access to community support for the volunteers who care about them, care about their kids, and help strengthen their families and get back on their feet. So thank you guys for the work you do.
Okay, so some of you were around and involved with Count Me In for Kids the first time. For those of you who weren't, and maybe even for those of you who were, it was a really good reminder. It was an amazing, highly effective collaborative. It wasn't just another meeting that people went to. And we had some amazing outcomes that are still just growing because of the efforts of that group of people. So as we think about the fact that there are still difficulties that we could, opportunities, there you go, opportunities that we could step into, things that we could try to tackle. We have put together for you today a panel of people who are very, very experts in the field, highly involved. Their organizations are organizations that serve children just like yours. And so as they come up, I'm going to read a little bit about each of them for you guys. And then we'll ask them a few questions to kind of start to flesh out what are some of the issues that need to be resolved. Is it something that we want to try to tackle? And then we'll talk about it at the end. Okay, so you've already met Jennifer. Next, I'd like to introduce you to Hannah Whip. She's the director of the Oklahoma County Juvenile Bureau. Director Whip attended Southern Nazarene University, where she earned her bachelor's in sociology in 2013 and master's in business administration in 2015. Director Whip took her education a step further in 2022 when she had earned her Society of Human Resources Management Senior Certified Professional Certification. That's a mouthful. Yeah. The highest national certification for human resources professionals. Growing up, Director Whip aspired to be a Department of Human Services worker. After working for a criminal defense attorney and immigration law firm through college, she accepted the position of detention center. Yes. A detention officer at the Oklahoma County Juvenile Detention Center in July of 2013 to get a foot in the door to the field. She quickly promoted to probation officer and knew she found a long-term career at the OCJB in 2014 when she promoted to the Internal Affairs Division, where her love for the OCJB staff and investigative work began. In 2017, Director Whip promoted to Human Resources Manager, where she thought she would stay forever, until the director position became available in 2022. When asked which job was her favorite, Director Whip says each position had highs and lows, but being the director has hands down been the most challenging and rewarding. So that is Hannah Whip. All right here on the end, we have Sarah Ray Hall. She is the Chief Executive Officer of Sunbeam Family Services and a licensed clinical social worker with over 35 years of commitment to community well-being. Under her leadership, Sunbeam Family Services has significantly expanded its impact across central Oklahoma, focusing on early childhood services, mental health, and family support programs through trauma-informed, evidence-based programs. Sarah achieved the infant mental health endorsement and frequently speaks on topics including leadership, mental health, trauma-informed care, and child development. She earned her bachelor's degree in psychology from the University of Minnesota and her master's in social work from the University of Oklahoma. Her dedication has been recognized through numerous honors, including the C.V. Romana Award and the Journal Record's Most Admired CEOs in both 2023 and 2025. She is a graduate of Leadership OKC Class 30 and also serves on the Imagination Library Advisory Board. Sarah's career reflects Sunbeam's mission of building brighter futures with all children and families. Please welcome Sarah. And last but not least, AJ Griffith on the other end. AJ is an accomplished policy leader, nonprofit executive, and former Oklahoma State Senator with a deep commitment to improving the lives of children and families. As CEO of the Potts Family Foundation, she advances initiatives that support early childhood development, family well-being, and equitable economic opportunity across Oklahoma. A lifelong Oklahoman and citizen of the Cherokee Nation, AJ brings a unique blend of public service, education, and advocacy to her work. Her career reflects a passion for building collaborative solutions that strengthen communities, particularly in rural areas and underserved populations throughout the state. Dr. Griffin holds degrees from Oklahoma State University, the University of Central Oklahoma, and Baylor University. She was a recipient of numerous awards for her work as a legislator, including the Kate Bernard Child Advocate of the Year Award. The Journal Record recently named her as one of the 50 most influential Oklahomans. Welcome, AJ. Okay, thank you, ladies. I'm going to pass this mic on to you and maybe turn this one on for me. That one needs to be turned on, yeah. Okay. All right, so we're gonna let you answer as you feel compelled to do so. I know you guys can play nice. So we're gonna start with the positive. What is working well for organizations who serve Oklahoma's children?
Start. Wow. Want me to start first? Okay.
There's a lot of great things. And there's a lot of amazing people in this room doing a lot of those great things. With Steele and we had Dr. Dunlap, and there's some really amazing work. I think one of the things I'm really enjoying right now is that we're focusing more on community-led initiatives. I know at Potts, that's our focus is funding existing organizations that are already doing amazing work and coming alongside them and incorporating early childhood components and really working on primary prevention from at food banks and after school programs and embedded in schools and using those resources as things have gotten scarcer at the state level, focusing on general level. The other thing I want to brag on is a commitment to parents' voice. Lynn Merritt's in the room, wise doing some amazing work, and of course, the Oklahoma Family Network has been doing great work for a long time, but really finally engaging the individuals that receive services in the development programs for designing them. Because let's face it, we look around this room, a lot of us look a lot alike. And we need to listen to them. And I know that I'm really, really encouraged by the lived experience voice that we're starting to see influence what we're doing.
One of the main things that I'm seeing both on the delinquent, the criminal side with the juvenile bureau and also on the more deprived side with OCCY, is just the number of people who are taking the initiative to say, okay, but that's not okay with me. Like, regardless of what system we've set up or what we've done or what we've put in place, It's the individuals who are going out and saying, okay, but I could do something extra. It's the one person who steps into, you know, a kid's probation report saying, okay, but I could help him do this. Or the small providers have come out of the woodwork to help us lately to say, okay, but we could do a program that would meet this need. We see this need that you have, and we can do that Thursdays at 2 o'clock for an hour. And sometimes just that small amount of initiative makes so much more of a difference than kind of like what she talked about before of we can have a committee of 50 people or 100 people or a board of 20 people, and we don't have great ideas, but we all also have a lot of, you know, obstacles to overcome. And what I've really seen working is I've seen a change in our community to go from, well, that's someone else's problem, and that's an organization's problem, and that's, you know, that's something else, to really individuals saying, okay, but I can fix this. I can make an impact in this way. I can do this. And so I've just really seen the individuals come out of the woodwork to partner with those agencies and say, hey, okay, but I can provide this specific piece so that that's not on your plate. So just seeing the overwhelming response in individuals and small organizations and providers, just everybody taking a piece so that then we can all, you know, kind of accomplish the dream together.
And then, you know, from the foster care perspective and seeing how DHS is really wanting to collaborate with us lately, I feel like that is a positive move forward. They've always wanted to do well, but the government wasn't designed to take care of children. And so that is where they see the value in what we do as private agencies. Working with OK Care, with all the private agencies and group homes in the state, and hearing their voices, pushing through things that are important, just like I said earlier, that's a positive thing. But the churches that step up for safe families, I can't even tell you, the 111 project is doing amazing things, for filling needs for families who are in crisis immediately. Clotilde Howard, I can't say enough about the amazing work that she does with bio families and how we love to work together and collaborate on just Christmas for kids. Like being able to contact any one of you at any given time if you have a need. That's the point of having these meetings, is to get to know who is the provider of different things that could wrap around your families. So I feel like that's going really, really well right now. And we just have to keep pushing forward and don't give up, because when I started my very first day, there was 12,448 kids in care. And today there's under 6,000 because of programs like Safe Families, because of programs like yours. So I'm hoping that we can keep moving forward, even though some days seem really hard. And like you get nowhere and you're knocking on, just hitting your head against the wall. We're making changes and it's happening, so don't give up.
I would like to probably piggyback a little bit too on what AJ said about the community. That I do think we're seeing a lot more nonprofits partner and be in locations across, especially in Oklahoma City, which is primarily where my agency serves. And that's so important. I mean, we know how spread out the city is, we know how hard transportation is, but we're also not trying to duplicate. And I always credit Dan Strong with that years ago when he started the Homeless Alliance and said all of the agencies serving the homeless are all going to be in one building working together. And we said, no, we're not. We're very competitive. We're on the same staff. And I think throughout the last 20 years, we have seen that really evolve in multiple places and in neighborhoods now where is the food bank coming in? Who's providing other services? I think we've gotten a lot better at public partner funding, really braiding funding, looking at creative solutions, because we have to take a year off from a funder, or we have to, this grant is only 3 years. How are we going to sustain it together as a community? So I think we've made a lot of strides in collaboration to serve children, and in all different spaces, from early intervention to prevention to treatment. Not that there's not enough in every space, but you really can see the difference, especially from everyone in this room who's been around for such a long time. You have felt that difference.
Amazing. Okay. Well, sticking with the positive just for a second, you guys heard a lot of stats the last couple days, a lot that are concerning. For that matter, yesterday I threw out some about trauma informed, or not trauma informed care, but about trauma and ACEs, that 45% of Oklahoma's kids have at least one ACE and 23% have two or more. What I didn't say yesterday that I think fits right in line with this positive outlook is that 78% of Oklahoma's families demonstrate resilience. And sometimes that's natural. That does come from within people just based on their personality sometimes, but many times it's built. And it's often built through the work that you guys are doing with those families. So I think that's another really positive thing that we can continue to build on. Okay, so we talked about the good. We know there are still some challenges. So what would you say is the biggest challenge that your organization is facing when serving children and families? They can choose.
Instead of saying my organization, I think I'm going to say community for families. We're involved in a collaboration at one of our smaller centers that is right next door to Mark Twain Elementary School. And the biggest need in that area is family housing. And so we have a collaboration going to address how are we going to build some family housing units around there. And so I think we all have struggles as an agency, but I think in community, we see our families are disrupted so much from the lack of affordable housing.
Wow, that's a loaded question. I see the need for more foster families, of course, and that's what I focus on. People willing to step up after COVID. We had a lot of people that kind of shut down their homes and said, we don't want to open up our homes and our lives to other people's problems. It's starting to come back and change, but I am seeing kind of an increase in that. And a lot of people are willing to maybe volunteer, but not foster. And so currently the average, apparently, number of kids that sit in an office every night waiting for a home is about 23. That's too many. One is too many to me. So, you know, if anyone is interested in fostering, or if you know of anyone interested in fostering, have them look into it. Just Google it. There are amazing agencies that are willing to step in and be your kind of your mentor through the whole process from start to finish and go with you to every single event. There are so many positive things about that. It's not a negative thing to step up and do. If you have a room in your heart and a room in your home, step up and be a foster parent, or be a respite care parent, or whatever that looks like. You'll probably end up being a foster parent if you do respite, but I know I did. So that is probably the biggest issue to me right now, is just finding foster homes. Step up.
I'd say our biggest struggle right now is mental health resources. She shared and I know we're all familiar with ACEs and what those are. All of my kids have 2 ACEs or more. I don't have kids who do not have a traumatic background. Very, very few and far between. You'll see one cute kid from Deer Creek walk through the doors and they just, you know, acted wild and did something in school. But the vast majority of my kids are from homes that have no stability and homes that have no resources. And they either have such a severe mental health issue or behavioral health issue, and the criminal justice system was their first cry for help. The mental health resources, and it's not their fault. No one can afford to live on what Sooner Care will pay for mental health resources. So literally providers can't keep their doors open based on what they can bill for. And then my parents can barely afford to feed their kids, much less pay for individual counseling for their kids. So the mental health resources are really difficult. And then I say the other twofold part, which is something that we have really built an initiative around, is the gap between law enforcement and the community right now. It just keeps growing wider. Every single news article you read, every single scandal you see on the news, every single video you see pop up on TikTok or Facebook or Instagram is a bad interaction. And it just furthers the divide between law enforcement and the kids and the communities. And so we've really pushed really hard to bridge that gap. With any of our community events, we're including law enforcement that actually work in the streets that our kids are in, to try and kind of give them a positive experience where maybe they're shooting hoops or playing a game or doing something like that, so they can build some kind of a connection so that the only time they see them isn't when they're getting arrested on the street. And the other part of it is just trying to bridge the gap between how do we fit all of the kids that we have and all of the people that we're trying to reach with the limited resources that we have. So then you go to the most severe, trying to reach them, but then the kids that don't get the resources then become your most severe. And so just trying to make all of your resources stretch and just, I would just say more mental health providers. I'm screaming for them right now. If there is an LPC, if there is a mental health provider that has 2 hours, they could come and do a program or do anything, or just volunteer for an event and hand out candy. Any kind of a positive interaction is better than a negative one. And a lot of times, anytime the kids aren't with me, it's a negative one. So just any kind of mental health resources that you have would be a huge benefit.
Uh-oh, here we go. Joe, I'm sorry. I referred in the positive to this focus on the local communities, but here's the reason why that's happening. Our biggest challenge is the intentional destruction of the infrastructure that is supposed to invest in the future of the people of the state of Oklahoma. Long and the short, partisan politics, all of this nonsense is dismantling intentionally this infrastructure that's supposed to support us in our work. And it's happening right before our eyes. And we are willing participants because of who we choose to allow us to be represented by. And when I say I'm a former elected member of these bodies, they are not focused on the future of the state of Oklahoma right now in any way, shape, or form. It's very, very disappointing. We make very small incremental change and wins while fighting like heck for these policy wins, while the infrastructure is being just completely dismantled. And that is my biggest concern, and why what's happening right now in this room right this second is so important. Is educating everybody on our role as advocates. And if you're not a voter, you're not an advocate. Okay.
Bye.
All right, so we know that there are a lot of struggles. You guys have multiple struggles in your own organizations that maybe weren't even mentioned. But based on what we've heard about the history of what County4Kids did and bringing safe families, getting something legislated, we can do big things. We can do hard things if we come together. So with that in mind, I'd love to hear your guys' thoughts and opinions on what it would look like to have a coordinated system of family support for Oklahoma's children.
Right. My turn. I think I'm probably stealing your thing, but I listened to AJ speak yesterday on the interim study on family resources. And I think having those community hubs, those centers across our state are going to be crucial to really building the momentum of how we take care of families. I think we've always talked for years about an integrated, coordinated, one-door system that families come through. And as much as that's a pipe dream, there has to be incremental steps to get there. And I think that is one of the places it can continue to grow. Because many of us can be that family resource center, whether we're urban or rural, depending on our resources we provide, but we're asking those who come through our door, what is it you need? What is it we're doing that you would like us to partner with to better enhance the work that we're doing? At our early education centers, we have families for 4 years bringing their child every day. What an opportunity that is to make sure those families have the best start. Because if they aren't doing well at that time, I know they're going to be with Director Whip in a few years. So I really believe the more momentum and understanding we get, because I'm sure AJ will speak about it more, because it's nuanced and people understand it, but they don't. And there are other models, people on the community center, so it's really understanding what works in each community, I think would really help further the impact we can make with children and families. And continuing to educate people, as we like to do at Sunbeam, that birth to 3 is not the warm-up, it is the main event. And I believe all treatment is possible. I spent years working in mental health court and drug courts. And yet I also know if we aren't really focused in that birth to 5 space, our ACEs will continue to grow. So I think family resource centers and really all of us pulling together on what those mean and look like and developing them tailored to the areas, the places and spaces we are would really make a difference.
So I sit on the Systems of Care Governance Committee for the City of Edmond, and we are working on possibly doing some kind of an AI code where people could walk into any building, they could go online and look the code, type in what they want, and it gives them a map to whatever resources they need that are local to where they're actually putting it in. It could be near their neighborhood, mental health, whatever that looks like. So I feel like that would be the dream, to have something like that where we're all connected. So any of us, for any client we have, anybody we're serving, even for ourselves, could look in and see immediately what we want and get help. A lot of us even need our own therapy for the things that we see because it's traumatic. And I think that would be kind of a dream. 80% of incarcerated people were in foster care at one time in their life. And so that tells you, they have reactive attachment disorder. There's a lot of issues that touch a lot of you in your daily work. So if we can handle those kids in foster care with the best wraparound services possible, that's why we created the Halo Project, so that we could create attachment with these kids who don't have it. We don't want to see them, move forward. A lot of these kids, which I need to be a resource for you for that too. But there are so many things that we could share with each other that would prevent this. And if we can focus on that 0 to 5, 0 to 3, and prevent that reactive attachment disorder at such an early age and let them learn to bond and trust with someone. And all of the things that you do too, be those adults that really, that kids look up to and trust, and be there for them no matter what. We can prevent a lot of things down the line, and I'd rather see money go towards education and have free education for all of our kids, for college, whatever that looks like. I think free school lunches for every single child in every single elementary school would be amazing, because nobody's standing in line going, well, I'm on the free lunch meal plan and here's my number, and whatever that looks like. If kids who don't want to eat lunch at school are going to bring their lunch, I don't really think that it's going to increase our cost of lunches that much, but just to provide it for free for everyone and make it easy, make it nutritious, whatever that looks like. But I just love the fact that we're all collaborating together, and that I feel like we could do more available to the community so they can hit the resources they need, because hearing some things that y'all do that I didn't even know existed in our town, and I feel like I'm pretty involved, and you guys are probably learning something new from some of us as well. So just the communication part of that is really important.
It really is the dream world to think about a one-stop shop that we could send an entire family and then receive, all the services and all the pieces. But we've seen it work. We're seeing it work in Diversion Hub on the delinquent side. We're seeing it work through the Arnault Foundation. It works. If we can get the providers together and the people together, and then just get the communication out, to be able to have a system of care like we're talking about, where everybody has a piece, and then there's one place, even just for people to go for communication. For instance, we'll see a lot of it. I know a lot of your organizations struggle with data, and struggle with having the data that you need to be able to get the funding that you need and the pieces that you need. I got 1,300 kids right now I can give you data about. If we're talking about truancy and the kids not going to school, I can tell you why they're not in school. They're not going to school because they don't have clean clothes and they don't have a lunch and and they're reading at 3 grade levels behind where they're at. To get a 17-year-old boy to go to school when he can't read, and just have him sit in biology class. I can't sit in the biology class, much less to ask him to do that when he's reading at a 2nd grade level. And to have what we're talking about and how we get there is by starting in rooms like this, where we sit and we go, okay, I can't swallow the whole elephant, but here's a piece that I can do. I have the data and I've got the kids, so let me help you and tell you what you need so that then you might be able to fulfill this piece, and maybe you can take this piece and you can take this piece, and this is how we build a system of care like that. And while it feels like this big mountain of, how do we fix all of the pieces and hit all of the foster families and the foster kids at 0 to 5 and all of those pieces before they get to me, because a lot of times, I'll be honest with you, once they get to me, everybody goes, oh, we want to help the kids, but not the bad ones. They can go do something different. When my kids are the same, they're the exact same kids. A lot of my kids just got caught doing something that the other kids didn't get caught doing. Where they didn't have the family structure to stop them from doing that because they didn't have a mom who was going to rip them a new one when they got in the car after school. It's the same kids. And so again, we don't have to solve all of the world in a day, but it takes all of us sitting in this room going, okay, if we're going to have a system of care, this is what we need to do. And we all know that there's a problem. Here's the piece that I can take. Here's the piece that you can take. And we have to keep having these conversations instead of, a lot of times we go to conferences like this and we go to pieces like this and we go, oh, that would be great if we could all do that. And then we go back home and go back to our offices and back to our things and go, oh yeah, that was a great idea. And then we never do anything with it. So I think the main thing is for us to keep the conversation going. And for you guys to network and talk to each other and share those resources and turn those pieces so that we can build this system, because we can't build it just with the 4 of us or the 5 of us or the 10 of us. It takes everybody in this room and all the people outside of this room that you're connected to.
Sarah mentioned the Family Resource Center model, and I tell you, I've done this stuff for 30 years, and I'm really excited about what it can mean, the transformative way we can apply this. And our friends at the State Department of Health deserve huge kudos for kind of relinquishing a little bit of control. Most of the time, state-run programs are pretty heavy-handed and check the boxy. They've done a great job of just saying, partially, part of the money was appropriated directly to POTS. So they're the pass-through, they kind of had to, but they've also embraced it. And so I'm really proud, and Susie's here. Yeah, so the team at the Department of Health, I think they've seen what can be done with just a little bit of creativity. But a coordinated system requires us to do 2 things. Those of us that are doing the work all day, every day, that get into the little churn of just doing my thing, we have to be better at thinking systemically. Looking at how does this thing fit in the system. And the people that are running the systems need to be better at thinking, how does this impact the everyday? The people with the boots on the ground doing the real work every single day. How does my decision impact them? How do I relinquish control so that the people that actually sit across the table from the people are really driving the train? So if we could maybe flip this thing a little bit, that's how you get coordination. Is the system's not driving the train, the people doing the work are driving the train. We're in charge, and those of us with the money as a funder, we at POTS, we live by a creed, ask people what they need, put it where they are, and get out of the way. And so that's really what, if we could get the state to do the same thing, ask them what they need, give them money, get out of the way, let them do the good work. That's a coordinated system. That it also gets us out of our silos at the same time. Another wish list I have is that we have all of our agencies that are run by people with practical, everyday boots on the ground experience. That's a wish list, so that you've been there, done that. You've sat across that family. You've been the knee with the teenager in crisis. You've been the foster mom and had the kid dropped on your door with the trash bag full of clothes, and been there, done that. All of those things kind of need to happen simultaneously. I know that's very theoretical, but in all reality, if we can get people to stop worrying about control and stop just doing, think systemically, make sure the system's responsive.
Okay.
It's last thoughts before I hand it over to them. All right, so we want to give you guys an opportunity to weigh in, to ask questions, whatever's on your mind. I believe we're still connected to our friends on Zoom, so let us get around to you with a microphone so that they can hear what you have to say. But I'm gonna open it up to all of you. Does anybody have a thought or a question? Was it just a lot?
I know, I always have to share one. Can I do that?
Kelly, will you help me?
Oops. I've got
You one on this side and I'll take the other. You want to get that?
I've got a loud voice.
So I was gonna say, we all did.
So keep on online, yeah. You know, we're seeing a lot right now, and I work with the Hispanic community, and I apologize, I've been in and out the last 2 days, so this may have already been addressed somewhat. But I'm seeing a lot of trauma in our children that we are inflicting on them for, in my opinion, not a great reason. But, you know, I'm getting kids that, you know, as soon as I kick the parent out of the room and it's a teenager, they want to talk about, you know, fears that they have when they come home, their parents won't be there. But they don't want to talk about it in front of their parents because they already know their parents are worried and concerned. You know, I have 12 and 14-year-olds telling me at 4 a.m. they're being marched out of the house with a gun pointed at their head. And so like this repeated trauma that we're seeing. And then, you know, those kids go to school and tell other kids about it. So they're traumatized, worrying about, you know, whether they're going to come home and the same thing's going to happen, whether that would happen in their house or not. What are we doing support-wise, to support, you know, kids and families that are in these situations, knowing that we don't have a lot of control from federal things that are happening?
I'll just share what we're doing at Sunbeam, and Paula Gates is our early education and my chief program officer there, and knows very intimately what we're doing at the sites because it's scary to 2 and 3-year-olds. And so what we're finding we have to do is have our infant mental health specialists in the room a lot more, working with sometimes the parents that is now taking care of the children or the caregiver, but also the teachers are impacted by this, and the school manager sitting at the front desk, and all the staff who have family members that are connected to this. And so I do think we are, we're struggling with the resilience a bit and really having to focus more on that staff care. Because it is a pervasive fear, even if you're once or twice removed from it, and doesn't seem to have an end in sight. And I think that's so differently about when we faced COVID. They may not have known what the end in sight, but we were facing a common enemy. And at this time, this feels like open-ended grief and trauma. So I think it's requiring all of us to give more, make sure we take care of ourselves, but what is that extra support and the grace that the family may need, because it is so hard. There's no magic answer, but I know it's taking more from everybody who is touched by it.
Same for us. I mean, in my world, you know, we have children coming into care. We have the Halo Project, which is, you know, making sense of your worth and working with older kids who have those fears. But it's a crisis. And so we step up to do whatever we can to be there for those families, and even provide items that they need through Bright Sky, you know, whatever that looks like. But mental health wise, they need lots and lots of support. And so I can only imagine how scary that would be. So thank you.
One thing that we've seen on our side is a child tells their friend at school that they're getting hit at home, you know, something traumatic that happens. They tell their friend, the friend tells the teacher sits down with the kid. Tell me what you told your friend. And the teacher tells the counselor, and the counselor sits down with the kid. Tell me what you told your teacher. And then counselor calls law enforcement. Law enforcement comes in and says, tell me what you told your teacher. And then they get assigned a caseworker, and then the caseworker sits down with them and says, tell me what you told your teacher. They refer them to counseling and the counselor sits down and says, do you see what I'm saying? We not only have the kids experience the trauma firsthand, they've had to repeat it so many times and re-experience it. And then every time that they speak about a trauma to someone who's not informed on how to deal with that, it can re-traumatize them and cause them more trauma based on their reaction to what they're telling them. And so one thing that we have been preaching to the school systems and to trusted adults and to anyone who's involved with any kids at any level in the foster care system or in the delinquent system, if you are not trained in how to have those conversations, you need to get out of that room. If you're not trained and you don't know what you're doing, I know you're trying to help, but your reaction to that is going to cause more damage to that kid than any help that you're going to be able to provide by telling the next person what they told you. So that's one piece that if you could take that back to your communities and to your organizations, everyone is trying to help and wants to be the sounding board and we in no way want to discourage anyone reporting. But if you know there are 3 people down the line that are going to need to hear that story, let them tell that story to the next person down the line, because we have so much more of an opportunity to impact them and help them if it's the 2nd or 3rd time they've told it versus the 10th. Because if they've gotten to the 10th and they haven't received any help, a 16-year-old male is not going to keep telling that story. And so by the time they get to the counselor, they no longer want to talk about it. And this is stupid. I've told this story too many times. I've never received any help. It just made the person I told cry. So if I just give you that one piece that, like you said, as these kids are living the trauma, if you're not informed and you don't know what you're talking about, please, I'm begging you, take a step out of the room and let someone who is informed and can do that get in there and help.
Dr. Dunn, to that particular ICE thing, that's what you're talking about. I would say I've been really impressed with local leaders' response. And sometimes we can bypass all this noise and show them, here's a local leader, someone in your community who's actually saying this. And mayors across the state have been pretty consistent. And yeah, that's not gonna happen in my town. Yeah, but as much as even if they can't control it, just saying it and showing that support so that local leadership really matters. And I'm gonna cover up this. And I'm going to say, beginning October the 28th, all of you, if you're a registered voter in the state of Oklahoma, the opportunity to sign a petition, take to vote the people, the chance to change the way we do our elections and open our primaries. So just another little political thing that I did it while I had my POTS tag and it was covered up, so it didn't count. Although I would have been totally for this, just so you know. I see you.
I've written down a lot of stuff, so I can't go through all of it, you guys, I know, but first of all, I want to thank the panel, everything they say is such, it's real. I thank Joe for this opportunity to be in ABC, the boot camp. If all of us, everyone in here have a certain expertise or skill. And I truly believe, like everything that you talked on with the housing and then the more foster families, we need more foster families out there. And then the mental health issues that we're dealing with, the dual diagnosis, substance abuse, as well as mental health issues. And then the system being broken and all that. With hope for the future, our families are dealing with all of those things. And I think that, if we all come together and be that piece of the puzzle, because like you said, we can't do it all. I can't do it all. Angels can't do it all. You can't do it all. But if we all come together and be a piece of that puzzle and put the part that we can put together, let's put it together and then let other people handle that and find out, collaborate with one another, partner with one another, let the other person know what is actually needed in these families. Then I really, truly believe these kids can be helped, because if we don't do it now, then these kids are going to be lost. And I guess I get emotional because I see every day, I see these children at Hope for the Future acting out, screaming, crying, parents, workers thinking that, oh, they're just being bad. No, they're not being bad. They're communicating with us that something is wrong, and it is our responsibility to find out what it is. So being trauma informed, being that, going to Halo, becoming a TBRI practitioner, learning the behaviors of these children, knowing how to handle it is very, very important. So I just think that we all need to not, like you said, don't leave here. We talk about all these good things, these things that need to be done, but don't leave here today and not do anything. Hey, families, I'm getting ready to go in there and do whatever I need to do because that's very important, but I just wanted to know that, let you guys know that this is great. I mean, I'm glad I'm here to hear all of these things and learning, you know, the different skills or positions other people have, but that's my take on the whole thing. So I have more, but I'm gonna leave it up.
Can I also piggyback on that just really quick? If you see something, I need you to say something. We're in so many of these rooms and so many of these organizations where we'll sit there and you'll sit at a conference or sometimes a staff meeting or sometimes, you know, something like that. And you'll hear the organization throw something out or say something and you're going, that's never gonna work for my kids. That's never gonna work for my community. That's never gonna work for my demographic. That's never gonna work for my kids. I need you to start saying something instead of just sitting there and going, well, I don't know where they came up with that, but it sounds crazy and I'm not sure how they're gonna accomplish it. And how literally I went to one that they were talking about truancy and they were gonna do focus groups and pick up the kids from the schools that they weren't in. And it was a wonderful program. It was wonderful. But I went, how are you gonna get them to the school they're not in to fix the fact that they're not in school? Like it just, and it's those pieces that go like, we have to start having those hard conversations and saying, here's where my system, because I'll tell you, my system fails all the time. It doesn't matter how hard I work. It doesn't matter how many kids I reach. It doesn't matter how many good things I do. Parts of my system are gonna fail. And it takes people like you guys going, Hannah, that was wild. Y'all tried to do that and it looked weird and the kids didn't like it. And it didn't work for my agency. I need you guys to start having those conversations with the people around you and your leaders and your leadership. I'm in no way telling you to go into your boss's office and tell them that their things were stupid. But what I am saying is I need us to start having the hard conversations and having them in rooms like this where we can actually make a difference and help instead of in your group chat with people at work that you're all like, yeah, that's stupid. Hannah shouldn't have done that. You know what I mean? But I need us to start having those hard conversations in rooms like this so that we can fix it. Because if we don't start saying, here's the problem and here's what's wrong and here's how we can fix it, we all just keep going and we say, well, that's just how we've always done it. That's how, and I gotta commend mental health and DHS and OJA for having those hard conversations and saying, here are pieces that we've done systematically. Also, the Juvenile Bureau itself, we've radically changed our processes in the last 3 years. Because we realized we were doing things because we've always done them that way. And they made no sense. And now I have kids writing their essays for their probation plans with AI. So now we're trying, and like we had a kid that came in and he submitted his essay and he had used the word dictation in there. And let me tell you, that did not come from him. And so talk to him, but if I just kept going, okay, write your essay as a part of your probation plan, because that's how we always do it. It doesn't hit anymore and it doesn't work. And then you've got the parents going, well, that was a big waste of time that you made him do it. And so, but it takes you guys going back and having those hard conversations. So please, in a kind way, in a way that comes from a place of love, in a way that comes from a place of, I want to help be a part of the solution instead of just telling you your idea is stupid. I need you guys to have those conversations too. And don't just have them here where it's safe. Don't just have them here where like we all, I know I'm preaching to the choir and all of you feel these same things, but have them in the places where they don't know. Because sometimes it just takes an employee coming to me saying, Hannah, I know what you were trying to do with this, but it would be better if we did it this way. Where it actually helps them instead of, because in my mind, I thought it was a great idea, but how it actually worked out would have been better a different way. So please have those hard conversations.
Right, because sometimes it's maybe impossible for this person, but this person, you know, looking at it a totally different way and sharing it, nothing's impossible, seriously. Just. Okay.
Okay, I'm gonna hand the microphone right back here to Jay. Is there anybody online trying to say anything? Can you keep us abreast of that as well, please? I don't know if we have some comments come in.
No. The comments saying thank you for strong message to other communities.
Great, thank you.
One of my friends that retired, Jen Moss, several years ago said, all politics are local. And I think all the answers are also local. I think that's one of the reasons I'm really passionate about the Family Resource Centers. Because I think the people in that community are gonna find the answers. And then an additional piece to that is, and I truly believe one of the reasons that OJA or juvenile justice, whatever, one of the reasons you have transformed in 3 years, and Jeff Allen will agree with me on this, is because you have not only a youth advisory, you have a parent advisory who is feeding into your program to let them know what works and what doesn't work. And I think one of the biggest things that has changed, and it happened very quickly, that was a recommendation, and you can apply this to all of your organizations. We should all have an advisory that's comprised of the people that we serve. And then you may also have people within the community that care about the people that you're serving. But one of the things that came up very early, one of the very first meetings that Jeff and I had before your staff were very involved in it, through a Thriving Families Safer Children grant that we had, is they said, I needed help before they ended up in your care. And I hear this from birth families whose kids aren't yet in child welfare. It's the same. No one listened to them. No one had access to services until there was such a big problem. You know, we've got, and I know we all talk about going upstream, but I think the way we can fix that is by listening to them and hearing people with lived experience. What would have worked for them? What would have made a difference? I don't know how many times I've heard a birth parent whose kids ended up in child welfare say, if I had the support that the foster family has, I wouldn't have ended up this way. They may have and they may not have, but at least we could have tried. So, but what changed was you changed a policy. And it was, you do not have to wait until your child's in custody to get help. So when people call your office now, they can actually get directed to a website that's fabulous, that has all kinds of resources for those families. And it was built by the voice of the parents that said, we need this information. So I think if we'll all do that at wherever it is that we work, and if there's any way we can build some empathy in our hearts for people that we're serving. I know I told someone this morning, I think it was Joe, you wouldn't have liked me when I graduated from OSU in 1983. I wouldn't like myself because I was so clueless. You know, I grew up in a small town, always had everything I needed, you know, and that kind of thing. So I've learned an empathy by working with families that are living very different lives than I have, but I have to take my hat off because what you all have done is you've listened to the youth and you listen to the parents. And I appreciate that you say it's still not perfect because we can always do better, right? But I think listening to the kids you're serving and the parents has made a big, I think that's really gone a long ways.
Okay, back on this, please. I have a question for you guys. It's been really great comments and great to hear. I'm Bailey. I'm with Calm Waters, which is Oklahoma City's grief center. So doing very different work than a lot of you in this room, but still serving kind of in a really meaningful way. But you guys are talking about ACEs and how 45% of Oklahoma's kids have at least one ACE score. The loss of a family member is not quantified on the ACE score. And 1 in 10 children in Oklahoma lose a parent or a sibling. So someone probably living in their home. So there's lots of work for our agency to do, and we're relatively small in it, so it's great to be among like minds. One of the things I take really seriously that we do at Calm Waters is hosting student interns and really training the next generation of family service providers and doing it intentionally, right? I get a lot of people from small towns or not lived experience per se, like in the families that they're gonna then turn around and serve after graduation. So I'm just curious what you think organizations in Oklahoma who are serving children and families could do to better prepare student interns as they're approaching the field and becoming employed. Like, I want to make sure that we have like a really qualified workforce in Oklahoma because like even though we love to work all like work ourselves out of these jobs, we are gonna need to fill them too with quality candidates. So what can I do to support this work through training interns who are then gonna be entering the field?
So I grabbed this first because make sure they have near science training. And that's a big one, free. Anybody, state of Oklahoma, any format, we can do it in an hour and a half virtually, you can do it in a 2-day workshop. So if you haven't gone through near science training, make sure you just reach out. And OSU Center for Family Resilience coordinates that for us, but we still fund that. So near science training. And OSU on their campus, all of the freshman leadership, all the freshmen go through the summit. So we're incorporating it into higher ed, so hopefully we'll see that grow. I want to talk a little bit about the ACE study. And this is a recent conversation that I've had with Dr. Anda. So Anda and Floody were the original researchers in the Kaiser Permanente study that came up with the ACE. And Dr. Dunlap could probably say this better than I can. Rob does not like that those 10 ACEs are now kind of considered like a diagnostic. He does not like that. And he said, those 10 things, there's nothing magical about it. Those were just the 10 things they studied that they found were connected with the health outcomes later in life. So we've got to change the way we talk about trauma. ACE score, even the guy says, That's not me saying that, that's me channeling Rob. And so be real careful about that, because all trauma is trauma. And trauma is also interpreted by the individual. So what I would say, neuroscience training, because what neuroscience training does, it gives you an opportunity to reflect on your own experience. Once you understand yourself better, then we're better positioned to help other people deal with it. So little tidbits, but neuroscience training, if your organization hasn't done it in the last couple of years, we've kind of updated some things, really focused a lot more on epigenetics as new bodies of research have come out. So we'll continue to do that.
I have talked to the Center for Nonprofits a little bit about potentially working with students, like my daughter's a junior at OU and she's nonprofit management, that having like a some type of nonprofit management class that would also maybe have a section in it about the work that we do, and maybe more than that in different capacities, so that they can get a taste of every single service that we do in this community to serve people, like a system of care. And so I feel like that might be kind of a next phase. And I know even though she's taking that as her major in college, they're not focused on some of the actual services that are provided. And so I feel like she was a fellow with Inasmuch. If you know of anybody who really wants to do nonprofit work, she was a fellow this summer and worked for Infant Crisis Services, and it was eye-opening for her, even though she's grown up, looking at angels. So I feel like there's so many opportunities for you, even as a service provider, to reach those kids. But then we also have a junior board where those high school students are invited to come in, be on this junior board. They learn how to grant write, they learn about TBRI, they're learning about all of these things that serve kids. And I've seen them go from high school into college and take on a whole different career path that they didn't ever think was possible. So, I mean, there's hope, and it's coming. But each one of you needs to open up your doors to kids in high school and college, and have an intern program in different areas, and let them see real life on the ground activity, because that's what's changing the whole culture in high schools, and the non-bullying things, because they're seeing these people and their needs at an early age. I think that's really important.
I would probably just add that in our classrooms, we use conscious discipline, and we did the same thing this summer of hiring high school students. And we have high school bachelor's level, master's level. But what we heard back too from our high school students and even some of our associate degree interns is, man, I did not know how to self-regulate. Even the things that we think people know how to do, they don't know how to do. And hearing these high school kids talk about, well, you're right, I can't parent a child, I can't be a caregiver or babysitter if I can't even self-regulate. And so I do love that we're opening up and really, especially in this day and age, I think everyone needs, it goes back to, I have to learn by doing. I can learn by reading, watching, TikToking, but how I really learn is by doing. And so we took a leap of faith this summer and hired the high school kids to really learn by doing in the classroom. And I think that's really important. And then Dr. Dunlap sends all our residents, just want to give her a shout out, and med students, and just to think about the medical profession, really understanding the children and families we work with. She's a true champion.
And I'll just be the one to say, interns are the worst. I love them. They are, they're new, they don't know what they're doing. They don't know what they're talking about, and they have a lot of opinions and think they have the solutions for everything. But grow them, okay? Teach them, let them do things and let them mess it up and learn from it. We have a lot of interns and we go through that process, and I have some supervisors that love them because they just love the little feral humans, because that's what we do. And I have other supervisors that are like, why have you done this to me? They go, because we'll have kids text in and be like, the detention center's open on Christmas. Like, yes, we're open every day. My birthday, your birthday, Gina's birthday. Sometimes organizations hire interns and they sit them in a desk and have them removing tables for 8 hours. And they send them to get coffee. And they send them because they're annoying. And so but they are annoying, but we were all annoying at one point. Grow them and help them and teach them, and then they'll come back to you. I have so many interns that I've had as an intern, and we poured into them and grew them, and now they're phenomenal employees, either for me or for someone else. I know the investment's not always there, because you're gonna get some kids that come through and you're gonna pour into them and you're gonna teach them how to be an adult and to wear big boy pants and do all of the things and show up to work on time and not text in that your dog's mom got sick and so I'm not coming into work today, and you teach them all those things, and then they go and take those resources somewhere else. I know that's heartbreaking and you don't have any guarantee, but if you'll grow them instead of sitting them in an office with the kids that you don't feel like dealing with that day when they're ill-equipped to do that, they won't stay in our industry. And we have to train, it's like you said, we have to train and grow the next generation here, because this next generation is tough. And so we have to grow them and do that, and not just send them to Starbucks or send them to go, take notes at a meeting that they have no interest in. Yeah, paper shredders.
Thank you for the comment relief. I think we get that. Okay, I know you guys probably love to sit here and pick their brains because they're amazing. But I really want to turn it back on you. I'm hearing in this room that there is a ton of expertise, but also a ton of passion. And we all know what the problems are that need to be worked on. And I'm even hearing some potential solutions. We just can't do them on our own. So that begs the question then. Do you all feel like continuing Count Me In for Kids would be worthy? However, not for somebody else. Are you guys willing to participate? Are you guys willing to come to the table and form a group together? And what do we think that could look like? And I think Jennifer has an idea on that. So we'll see what she has to say.
So my thinking after being a founding member, seeing how it's grown, seeing how it's created an incredible program that has really changed foster care for the better, and helped families trust and learn that they have a place where they can reach out when they need it. Seeing all the amazing things that happen in such a quick time period because of all the knowledge in the room and all the people who want to make a difference and push things forward, including senators, judges, police, everyone involved. I feel like the work that we do really works hand in hand with what Joe does at OICA, pushing things through to make a change, just like we did with partial power of attorney, creating easier pathways for us to be incredible and do the work that we do. I feel like we would be a great committee underneath OICA. So we're not having meetings to have meetings. It would be a great way to connect us all during things like this. We could have our Count In for Kids time during a fall forum or something like that, and pushing through really important things that need to be worked on. I mean, is anyone interested in doing that collaborative? I mean, currently it's housed under the Lynn Institute because that's where it started. But Karen Waddell, her wish was to push it forward into its own type of collaborative underneath something else. And so I don't know, what do you guys think about that? You know, I would love to be part of it. I see so many leaders in this room who would be amazing on so many different committees. Nobody wants an extra meeting just to have a meeting, especially me, and you know that. So I would be very thoughtful of your time. Some things could be done on Zoom, you know, whatever that looks like. But I'd love to hear from you all, what you think about it, if you think it's worthwhile, if you feel like it's just not in your wheelhouse, great, you know, whatever. But I want to hear what you all think about it. Anyone?
Did you just throw Joe under the bus? Did he know you were gonna say that?
Joe knows, but I feel like he's do it.
I thank you for that vision that you shared. I think that we don't have any other choice but to work together.
Right.
The reality that AJ shared so articulately, the resources aren't there. There's no one coming to save us at this point. All we have is each other. And so I think it's absolutely essential for us to work together. And I would say, as far as next steps, how do we think more strategically about dividing ourselves up in a way that makes sense to ensure that we're addressing all the issues? We all do, again, a very wide variety of different things. So how can we be intentional about figuring out how those pieces can all come together? But I think it's absolutely required, and I'm ready to do whatever it takes to join you.
We could have a collaborator come in to our first meeting and help us coordinate a vision plan, some kind of a vision. And then lay it all out. It's interesting when they do that, then you come back to the second meeting and you're like, okay, they divided it up this way. We've got 3 committees or 4 committees, subcommittees on here. And then you can have smaller meetings throughout the year and then come together a couple of times a year and just really pour out what your committee's been working on. And then if you have 3 or 4 committees, then you're gonna have 4 things or 3 things that you want to present to Joe to push through that are really important. Instead of, you know, I look at the list of things we went over today and I look at all the things. That's a lot. I mean, as a senator, they're like, that's like drinking out of a water hose, or it's like reading a whole book when you can just read the cliff notes, when you just, you know, when you're writing a grant and you're like, they say 2,500 words, but they really want 200. Don't grow so much out that they can't swallow it. And that's how I feel, you know, just about the bill we passed through, partial power of attorney. It was so simple, but it just went through by itself. How are they going to say no to that when it's for kids? They're not. So I just feel like we need to collaborate, shrink down our list, and really push forward 4 important things that they can really work on. And so I feel very passionate about that. So thank you for saying that. Anybody else? Over here, anything? Oh,
No, I'm in. I don't have any.
I'm in. She's already in.
Say, we'll bring the mic to you.
I don't have anything else to say. I'm sad. I'm in.
I love it. Thank you.
We're gonna fight over the mic. I'm Dr. Marilyn Dillon from Embark. I'm the Mobility Management Administrator. I think it's a great idea to continue Count Me In for Kids. The one thing I have to say to everyone in the room is I'm gonna take a lesson from Hannah. Don't forget us, okay? Because you guys can come up with the most amazing programs on the planet, but if you don't invite one of us mobility transportation people to the table, nobody's gonna show. You know, you can build it and they will come. Doesn't work in the world that we live in. So if it's local in Oklahoma City, call Embark and let us come to the table and help you. We're experts at this, on how to get people where they need to go quickly, efficiently, and affordably, which is the key there, because we all know that we're short of cash. It doesn't have to be me. We have a group of us that cover the entire state. There's someone in all 77 counties. So if you're rural, you can still call me. I will find someone to come to your meeting for me. So, but I think that's really critically important, and I always feel like when I sit in meetings, with the access piece of it is the one thing we always forget to talk about. And it's the one thing that's gonna make this work.
You're invited.
Hey, Jen, I'm gonna talk a little bit about the former policy chair, committee chair for OSA's board, so. John, this is a great idea. I would love to have a policy committee that contained all these folks with people working on stuff, that'd be fantastic, because we track, how many bills did we track last year, 280-ish? It was a bunch. Ish. We need to be cognizant of the fact that Joe runs a pretty small ship. He doesn't have tons of staff, so that's gonna be a challenge there. The other one is there's another group that, Investing Kids is OPSR's Early Childhood Committee group that could become just part of this whole one thing. Then I would like to see Potch used to have something called, we used to do an early childhood caucus. And then Pat used to have what was called OK CEOs, which was where she worked to engage business leaders in kids' issues. It's very early childhood focused. I think we could do it broader. If anyone would be interested in helping with that, I'd love to bring that one back. So I think it's going to be important as well. So that could be part of this whole County In for Kids, one big organic advocacy group thing.
I like it.
Who thinks a children's caucus is a good idea? Do you guys not understand what that means? Okay, never mind. If Dr. Dunlap likes that idea, we're doing that.
Doc's gonna be the chair, that. Her spare time.
Okay, we just have a few more minutes left. Does anybody else want to say anything before we?
Come on. Question right here.
Greetings, everyone. I would like to place on the Kids Count agenda, Kids Caucus agenda, and look at the policies that create these circumstances for these families. Because it feels very reactive to me. And I'm just curious about what are the policies that are really impacting families that are causing such a high female incarceration rate that causes them to lose their children, right? And so I don't have very much else to say about it. I would just very much like to be on whatever committee is looking at the policies and the politics that are creating these circumstances. Because I feel like if we do that, then we really could create a different outcome for these young people.
Okay. All right, you see the QR code there. If you did not register only for County for Kids, if you registered only for County for Kids, I have your information. If you are at Fall Forum and you registered for that, I don't have your information. And if you want to participate, and I hope that you do, I need you to scan this QR code for me and give me your contact information. And we will reach out and we will figure out what our next steps are, maybe together. And we will move forward. How does that sound? Okay, thank you guys. Thank you so much.